Hey Tom, I appreciate the opportunity that we have to get together today. I don't know if there's something or not that we have that can help you, but I'm going to go through the areas that we work in. Areas like increasing your cash flow, decreasing your debt, and reducing your taxes. Now we specialize in both life insurance and annuities, and we use these products to help shave years off your retirement date. After that, if there's still an interest on your part, I'll gather up some information so when we get back together again we can go over some specifics. But for now, there's absolutely nothing to buy, so I just want you to sit back and relax. Does that sound fair enough? Great. Hey, a little bit about the company I work with, Federal Financial Group. We're a national company. We represent about a dozen insurance companies and other financial institutions that have billions of dollars of assets. In fact, some of the companies that we work with have been in business for over 100 years. What we do is we teach people about money, about how it works and how we can make it work better for them. Specifically, we have one goal: to help people become financially independent. And what I mean by that is when that interest that's coming off that money you put away is large enough that it can actually replace what you make through your business or through your job. At that point, we consider yourself financially independent. At that point, you don't have to work anymore. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. That's what financial independence is all about having choices. Now, if you're like most people, I'm sure you want to know how to get there as soon as possible, right? Well, we're going to get to that in just a moment. But first, I always like to talk about some of the issues and challenges that face us today and then go over some of the solutions. You know, just take the last 10 years, for example. You know, many people, their incomes have risen, but so has the cost of everything else. The cost of housing, the cost of groceries, the cost of gasoline. So you can see what happens. People tend to find themselves getting into debt. A lack of security sets in, poor savings habits ensue. The next thing you know, they're in big trouble. Case in point, right now, the baby boomers are retiring or turning 65 at a rate of 10,000 a day. Now, if you were to take just 100 of that 10,000 are retiring today, and you were to guess at how many of those people out of that 100 actually have an income of $35,000 or more, what number would you say it would be? Well, that's a pretty good number, but it's actually 4%. Now, these statistics are based on the Social Security Administration and the U.S. Census Bureau. So what about those other 96? What do? They have to rely on friends or family. They have to rely on charity or welfare. But for the vast majority of them, they have to continue to work. And if you go down to any Walmart, Sam's Club, any fast food joint and look around, you're going to see those people who are beyond middle age and are working not because they want to, but because they have to. And it reminds me, just about 2 weeks ago, I was down in Goodyear, and I was between appointments, so I ran into a Subway just to grab an iced tea, and as I was coming out, next door was a Domino's pizza joint. I went into my car, and I'm sitting there drinking my iced tea, and I look up, and here comes a guy out of there. He had to have been 75 years old. He's wearing a Domino's pizza uniform shirt, carrying a pizza with the hat on. I watch him. He walks over to his little Buick with the Domino's sign on the top, and he heads out of the parking lot. I happened to be following him out, and I got to thinking, there's no way 25 years ago, when that fellow was middle-aged, he thought that he'd be delivering pizzas when he was 70, 75, or 80. That's what's happening out there. That's what we don't want to happen to you. Anyway, you know, some of the solutions, you know, we work in key areas involving 7 steps to help people increase their cash flow, decrease or hopefully eliminate their debt, reduce their taxes, and hopefully help them retire sooner than later. What we do is we weave these steps together, you know, to help people do just that. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rip through these 7 steps real quick. Let me see here. And I want you to stop me if you have any questions, or just make a mental note of what areas might be the highest need or priority for you today, and we'll come back and we'll address those a little bit later, okay? First step is what we call inspect what you expect. You know, for you to have money in the future, for your future goals and needs, you need to know where your money's going today. Part of about understanding money, about how it works, is knowing about where it's going. We will introduce you to a tool here that will help you track your income and your expenses so you can actually inspect what to expect. Our goal here is to actually help you find money that you didn't know you had in your budget and direct it towards maybe paying down your debt, maybe put it towards a future goal or dream, maybe a new car or down payment on a house, or towards a retirement plan to hopefully help you retire sooner than later, okay? Step 2 is increasing your cash flow. Now, Tom, if you were to define cash flow, how would you define cash flow? Well, that's pretty good, but the way we define cash flow is the money that's left over at the end of the month after all your income has come in and all your expenses and bills have gone out. That's what we can consider cash flow. Now, we actually work with a couple firms that actually specialize in increasing folks' cash flow by reducing the cost of servicing their debt. And, well, for example, at the end of the year, do you pay in to the IRS, or do you actually receive an income tax return? Well, that's pretty interesting, because last week we were sitting down with a gentleman, and he told us that he got back between $2,500 and $3,000 every year. And the same gentleman, he had some serious credit card debt. So I just asked him, I said, so what you're telling me is you're letting the government keep your money for 13, 14, maybe 15 months before your income tax return, just so they can give it back to you at 0% interest? At that point, a little light bulb went off in his head. He realized what I was saying, and he said, that just doesn't make sense. And I told him it doesn't. There's ways that you can take that money now, put it into your budget, so you can apply it towards your debt, or you can get interest on it if you put it into some sort of investment. Now, step 3 is a big one for most folks, and we deal with debt elimination. Really, we have 2 plans here. The first one, plan A, is what we refer to as a debt eliminator. What it is, it's an actual computer program where you can actually put in all your debt that you have, and the program will actually tell you how and when to pay off the debt. And it can be done in probably half the time. Here's just an example of a typical client. This fellow had a mortgage of $144,000. He had a car loan of $39,000, credit card $10,000, and a store credit for about $1,200. Typical average American, right? If he was to make his regular payments, he would be debt-free in 26.8 years. By using the debt eliminator, he was actually able to get the debt paid off in 13.1 years. Then, by applying the same amount of money that he was paying on his debt towards some sort of a long-term goal or some sort of investment, he was able to have, at the end of that 26.8 years, he was going to have approximately $500,000 in the bank. So instead of just getting out of debt, he was going to be out of debt plus have that extra money. That's what we like to use this program for, to help people do just that. The second plan we have, or plan B, I call it, is actually refinancing your home. Now, John, do you have a house? Okay, you do? Okay, great. Now, do you owe much on your home? How much equity is in that house? Now, what kind of interest rate are you paying right now? Okay, well, this is a way that I like to use as a last resort, but to refinance your home and pull some equity out of that home to consolidate your debt so you can pay it off and have extra money in your budget. Okay, let's go to number 4. This is also a big one. Developing an emergency fund. What I've found is most people don't have one. So what happens is, transmission goes out on the car. You need $1,800 if you don't have it. Out comes the plastic. That $1,800 transmission ends up costing $3,000 or $4,000 2 or 3 years down the road because of the interest. This really hurts people. Puts you on that treadmill where you never can get caught up. What we like to do here, though, is when we set up an emergency fund with somebody, we want to make sure that, well, there's basically 4 factors we like to deal with. First off, it has to be in a safe place. So in a bank or a credit union or something like that. It has to also be liquid, which means you can get to it if you need it. Third, it has to get a better interest rate than a normal checking account, because the checking account is getting almost 0% interest. And fourth, we like to have it separate. And by that I mean somewhere that's, maybe it's a little bit difficult to get to, but you can get to it. Because if you try to save money in a checking account, I don't know if you ever had or not, it's right there, it's so convenient to get to that it will be spent. I'm sure you've heard the term out of sight, out of mind. We want you to have this account set up somewhere where it is out of sight, out of mind, that it's systematically, maybe $50, $100 a month comes out of your regular checking account and goes into this fund. That way, when that transmission goes out, instead of pulling out the plastic, you have some place you can go, pull that money, pay off the bill. Every month the money keeps going in. You'll be surprised how fast that will grow. It'll keep you from using your plastic, plus it'll keep you from being tempted into tapping into some qualified plan, your IRA plan, where you have to get hit with a 10% penalty and pay the taxes on that. That's the last thing we want to do. Setting these things up, they're simple, they're very powerful, and they work. Okay? Now step 5 is what we consider protect what you have. Here we're utilizing life insurance to protect the life of the breadwinner of the family, which means basically protecting the income that he generates for the family. I don't know if you've ever seen it before, but in my previous job as a police officer, I saw it on a regular basis where you have mom, dad, 3 kids, and something happens to dad, whether he gets killed in a car accident or industrial accident or gets sick and passes away. It's bad enough that the family is losing their father or a spouse, but now they lose their income that came into the family. So the poor spouse is left over, trying to make do with half if she works, or more than half of the money not coming into the family. So how is she or he gonna pay the mortgage, pay the grocery bill, pay the gas bill, pay the electric bill? And that dream of sending your kids to college might be just that, a dream. What we do here is a little bit different though. I mean, the foundation to any financial plan is that life insurance to make sure this doesn't happen. But what we want to do is we go out and we actually search all those companies that we work with to get you the best rate for that insurance. So maybe we'll be able to increase your cash flow if you're already paying too much for your insurance. This is what we do in step 5, okay? Now step 6, this is the biggest one. And if you listen to me, this could change the quality of your life. This is the one everybody likes best. Step 6 has to do with building a long-term savings or long-term retirement plan. Now, there's basically 2 elements at play here, or 2 battles that you have to win this money game. And let me be strong with you, if you don't incorporate these, the chances of you becoming financially independent probably will not happen. If it does, it's way out there. So the first battle that you have to win is the inflation battle. We're going to get to that in just a minute. The second battle is the tax battle, because it's not about how much you make, it's about how much you keep or get to put in your pocket, right? Taxes will hurt you if you're not careful. Now back to the inflation battle. Have you ever heard of the rule of 72? Well, it's pretty neat. Let me explain it to you. Basically, let me grab my little pad here. Basically, whatever interest rate you're saving at, we'll say at 4%. Now I'm writing upside down, so bear with me. If you divide that into the number of 72, now it doesn't have to be 4%, it could be any number, but I'm just using 4%. This number will tell you how many years it takes your money to double. So I know 4 goes into 72 18 times. So I know every 18 years your money will double. For example, let's say I have $100. I put it into my savings account, and I'm getting 4%, which you're probably not getting now anyway, but anyway, 4%. We know in 18 years, it's going to double to 200. So I leave my $200 in there at 4%. Another 18 years, it's going to double to what? That's right, $400. But the question is this $400 going to be able to buy what $100 does today? You see, inflation has averaged about 3% every year from 1926 to 2012. That's inflation. Now, Tom, people are saving money, but where are they saving their money? In places like banks and credit unions. Maybe they have it in a CD or a money market account where they're probably not even getting close to this 4%. So you can see what's happening here. Their money is growing, but so is inflation. And for many of these folks, when it comes time to retire, they just can't because they just don't have the money. The solution? Let's say instead of 4%, we could help this person get, say, 6 to 12%. Do you think that would make a difference? Yeah, I'm sure it will. All right, let's take a look here. Let's say this fellow we're talking about here, let's say way back when he was 29 years old, he had $10,000. So he takes the $10,000 and he puts it in the bank at 4%, And we know that in 36 years, he'll have what? $40,000, right? So now he's 65 years old. He wants to retire. The kids are, grown up, and hopefully they've moved out of the house. Hopefully the house is paid off, and he's ready to finally relax and retire. How long do you think $40,000 is going to last? If he's like most of us, a year. If he's really, really frugal and really tightens his belt, maybe a year and a half. Now he's out of money. Now you know what he is? He's a greeter down at Walmart. But the real problem is this: he's run out of time. You can't go out at age 66 or 67 and start building a nest egg. You just don't have the time to do it. Now, what if we could go back in time and let's say we could have got this guy, I don't know, let's say 6 to 12% interest instead of 4. Do you think that would make a difference? Of course it would. Let's take a look at this example right here. Let's say he could have got 6%. Well, his money would have had a chance to double one more time. Remember the rule of 72? So he would have had $80,000. That would have been pretty big, right? Let's say he would have got 8%. It would have had a chance to double again. He would have had 160. That's real big, right? Let's say he could have got 12%. Now, I'm not saying you get 12% every year. We're just using this as an example. But if he would have got 12% during that time, he would have ended up with strike that, what am I saying here? He would end up with $640,000. I mean, you're talking the same guy here, same amount of time, same age, but it cost this guy right over here $600,000. Now, Tom, that's got to be a pretty important principle for you to understand, right? Yes. But you know what, Tom? It's not about having $10,000. It's about putting away what you can on a monthly basis at a decent interest rate. If you'll start saving money for you, there may be a time when you won't be out earning your money, but your money will be out earning you. Pretty neat, huh? I guess the million-dollar question is, where do I get a decent rate of return on my money, but yet have that protection of principal where I'm guaranteed to actually not lose money? Well, there are actually 3 different strategies when it comes to saving money. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a synopsis of each one. Then you can tell me which one makes the most sense to you. That way, when we get back together, I can design a plan that's most suitable for you, okay? The first plan is fixed, the fixed rate. You're probably very familiar with that. This has to do, that's like your checking account, savings account, maybe CDs, something like that. It's liquid. This is your now money. This is the money you have to get to right away. But for saving long term, you might only be getting maybe 1 to 3% interest if you're lucky. You might not even be getting that. Your money is guaranteed, but like I said, you've got a real problem here with inflation risk. The other end of the spectrum is the stock market. You've got a potential here to make a lot of money, but also have a potential of losing a lot of money. Back in 2008, a lot of people did, and a lot of people are just getting back to where they were back then. The problem with this is it's very risky. And I'm not saying that this is right or wrong, but I'm just telling you this is very risky. The middle ground, I guess you would say, the third, is what's referred to as the index strategy. This is where your principal, or the money you put into the plan, is protected. All interest earned is also protected. You're guaranteed not to lose money. The interest rate is actually based off the S&P 500 stock index, which has averaged right around 10% per year for the past 25 years. Now, of these 3 strategies, which strategy makes most sense to you? The index strategy? You know, that is a very popular strategy today. And let me just give you an overview about, how it works. First off, the S&P 500. Have you heard of the S&P 500 before? Well, let me explain basically what it is. The S&P 500 stock index is made up of 500 of the most widely held companies in the United States. And what I mean by that are these are companies that actually have stock and they're on the stock exchange, the S&P 500 stock exchange. It represents about 100 different industries, ranging from medical, pharmaceuticals, technology, things like that. basically, the S&P 500 represents almost 70% of the total equities market in the United States, or about 70% of the total economy. But get this, the S&P 500 stock index has averaged right around 10% for the past 25 years. So if you would have invested money back 25 years ago, you'd probably be pretty happy, right? Yeah. Now, if when we get back together, you have determined that the S&P 5, or I'm sorry, that the stock or the index strategy is suitable for you, then I'll go over some of the specific products, some of the costs, some of the caps, the floors, and some of the terms and conditions. But for now, let me just give you an overview of the index strategy and how the interest crediting works, okay? First off, like I said, all interest earned is linked to the S&P 500 stock index up to a cap, let's say 12%, without any downside risk associated with having your money actually in the stock market. So you're guaranteed not to lose money in this program, plus you can actually potentially ride the stock market in its good years. So basically, you can earn up to that cap of 12%, but in the down years, when there's a downturn in the market, you have a floor there of 0, so you're guaranteed not to lose money. So you can see why this is such a, an important strategy, right? Let me give you an example. Let's say you and I we both have $10,000. I like that number, $10,000. It's easy to work with. Let's say I am in the stock market and you're in the stock indexed strategy. So we have $10,000. Then the first year it goes up 10%, okay? We each have $11,000, right? Doesn't matter what we're in there. The next year it goes up again 10%. Hey, now we're both up to 12,100. Hey, we're making some serious money here. Everything's great until the third year. The third year we have a correction. It drops back 20%. Now the funny thing is, most people think, well, it went up 20, comes down 20, I'm back at 10,000. But actually, it's 10% of a larger number. So instead of me being down at 10,000, I have 9,600. Now you're in the index strategy. Remember I told you there's a floor. You're guaranteed not to lose money. You just go sideways. Now you have $12,100. Now let's say the next year, hey, we have another good year. It goes up 10%. Well, I'm getting 10% of a smaller number. I'm only up to 10,500. You're up to 13,300. Now do you see how that works? The stock market, it bounces up and down all over the place. You in the index strategy, it looks more like steps. You take advantage of the good years, and the bad years, you don't lose money. You can see why the index strategy is such a popular option today. The best way for you to win the rate of return battle and the inflation battle is to get a potentially better, higher growth on your money without the chance of losing money. But Tom, you can't just win the rate of return battle and the inflation battle and forget about taxes. Remember we told you before how taxes will hurt you? Well, I'm going to give you an example here that might be shocking about how important it is to win both, all the rate of return battle, the inflation battle, and the tax battle. Tom, how old are you? 35? Let's imagine 5 years ago you decided you wanted to save up and have $1 million by the time you were 60, okay? Now you didn't know any of this stuff we were talking about, so you just walk into a bank and you approach the banker. Hey, Mr. Banker, I want to have $1 million in the bank when I'm 30. So he sits down with his little calculator, punches up some numbers. Back then, let's say we were getting 5% interest on your CDs, and he was going to roll you into that sort of a product. So the banker comes back, and he says, Tom, I got some great news for you. For you to save up that $1 million, you have to put away $1,639.29 a month. Now, what would you tell them, Tom? That's right. You wouldn't. There's no way you could save up that kind of money. So you walk out the door. You never save a dime. Now you're 60 years old, and guess what? You're going to be that greeter at Walmart, right? But let's say before you walked in there, we had a chance to talk, and you became aware of how to win this rate of return battle and this tax battle, okay? Let's win one at a time. First off, let's say instead of getting 5% on your money, let's say we could have got 10%. You can see here, it dropped that down to $900. I mean, could you save $900 a month? Most people probably couldn't, but it did drop at $700. I mean, that's pretty important, right? Now, let's say we could have put it someplace where the money wasn't taxed while it grows. Tax deferred, right? Now, look how it drops that money down to $438 a month. Now, could you save $438 a month? For a lot of people, that's no big deal. Heck, for a lot of people, they blow that on their lattes and fast food anyway. But let's say you didn't want to have $1 million. Let's say you just wanted to have $500,000. It would have been half that. Could you save $215 a month? Probably. Now, you can see how important it is to learn how to win all these battles, right? Now, Tom, I want to take a moment. I've been doing all the talking. I want you to do some talking here. I want to flip on that dream machine. I want you to think, if you are totally financially secure, financially independent, where you had enough money rolling off that nest egg that we put away that you didn't have to work anymore, what would you and your wife be doing right now? Traveling. That is a big one that a lot of people want to do. How would you travel? Where would you go? That's interesting. Now, would you take a motor home? Would you go on cruises? Would you go by train? How would you do that? Now, can you actually picture yourself out there enjoying life? Being financially independent gives you options. You can do what you want, when you want, and how you want. That's where we want you to be. In fact, about 2 weeks ago, we were going through the implementation phase of this. This is actually the second appointment. And I'm sitting down with this couple, and the wife jumps up, and we're just going through crunching the numbers here, and she jumps up and she says, you know what? I can walk up and down my street right here, knocking on every door and asking them, when will you be financially independent? No one would know, but I would know. At that point, both she and her husband became one because they knew when their dreams were going to become reality. That's what makes step 6 so neat. In fact, in step 6, if we do this right, we'll know when and how you can become financially independent, and if we tweak all the numbers just right, we might be able to do it sooner than later. You might be able to retire actually sooner. That's what makes step 6 so neat. All right, let's jump to step 7. Step 7 is about estate planning. And what we're talking about here is the transfer of wealth from one generation to another without Uncle Sam coming in and picking your pocket one more time after you passed away. And the way we do this is using wills and trusts. We help people set these up so Uncle Sam won't potentially take that money away from you. That is very important. Now, do you have a will or a trust in place? Well, I'll tell you what, if you don't, your estate will go into probate, which means it's a court. They will sit down and they're going to figure out who gets what. And you have no say in the matter, of course, because you're passed away. And in addition to that, they end up charging or taking a percentage of your estate to do that. So we highly recommend that you set up either a will or a trust. Now, have you ever heard of Terry Schiavo? Remember the Terry Schiavo case from a few years ago? That poor woman, she was incapacitated. She was sort of in a vegetative state. One part of the family wanted to pull the plug. The other part of the family didn't. It basically tore that family apart. Now imagine what would have happened if there was a living will in place. Now, do you and your family, do you have living wills in place? Is that something that might interest you? Well, is it a concern to you if you were incapacitated like that, would it concern you as to who would be making your financial, your legal, your medical decisions? Is it a concern to you as to where your assets would go after you're gone? Now, we can refer you to the folks that actually can set up these type of wills and trusts and things like that. Now, are you working with somebody right now? Okay, great. You know what? That's something we can touch on a little bit. But for right now, those were the 7 steps. Pretty cool, aren't they? Now, let me ask you a question. Out of those 7 steps, this is a real important question. Out of those 7 steps, step 1, inspect what you expect. 2, increasing your cash flow. 3, eliminating debt. 4, developing that emergency fund. 5, protecting what you have. 6, building that long-term financial independence, or step 7, estate planning. Of those 7, if you could only pick 2, which would you consider your most important or the highest priority in your life right now? You know, that is a good choice. Those are good choices. Now, what we do from here is what's called a financial needs analysis. This is where I'll determine what products are suitable for you. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you a bunch of financial questions. What that's going to do is give us a snapshot of where you are right now, and it'll tell us where you want to be in the future. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that information back to the office at Federal Financial. I'm going to feed some of this information into some sophisticated computer software that we have. And I'm going to bounce some ideas off of some of the older, more experienced agents. And then what I'm going to do is come up with a plan that is specific to you to help you get from where you are right now to where you want to be in the future. Financially independent, right? Pretty awesome, right? Great. Now, usually at this point, people want to know, how do I get paid? Is there going to be money coming out of my pocket? Actually, I get paid 2 ways. First, when I develop your plan, I'm going to go out to those companies and I'm going to take or cherry pick specific products that each one of these companies have to develop your plan. Now, whatever company that suits your needs the best, that company pays me a commission. It's as simple as that. Second, if you feel that I brought some value to you today, that what we've done is really helping you, I would ask that when we're done to introduce me to 3 or 4 folks that you know that can also benefit from this type of work. Does that sound fair enough? Great. All right, great. Well, let's get started. Now, I'm going to ask you some questions about your finances. You have to be as accurate as possible because we're talking about your financial future here. Now, there's nothing I'd rather have in my office than a file with your name on it, but confidentiality is very important to me. So whatever is said is just going to be shared between you, me, and maybe a couple of folks at the office who are going to help me develop your individual plan. Does that sound fair enough? Now, if for some reason you decide that you don't want to do business with me, I doubt you will once we show you your plan though, because I'm pretty excited already. All that information will be either returned to you if you want it, or if you just want me to, I'll shred it, because I do not want this information on, if you're not doing business. If you are doing business, it will go in a file with a copy of whatever we're doing. Okay, does that sound fair enough? Great. Let's get started. Okay, at the end of the F&A. Tom, look at this. We were able to find $300 out of your budget. It's going to be like it's not even coming out of your pocket. This is money you didn't even know you had to start funding this plan. Now, I don't know what I'm going to come up with quite yet, but I know it's going to look pretty good because $300 is quite a bit, right? But now, I have to be serious with you. Let's get serious here for a minute because we're talking about your financial future. What I want to do is I want to build on what we've done here today. So what we need to do is schedule a time within maybe tomorrow or the next day to get together and go over this plan, okay? Now, look over your, this is really going to be great. You're going to love it when we're done here. But let's take a look at your schedule right now. I actually have Wednesday evening or Thursday morning open. I have a 10 o'clock Thursday morning and I have a Wednesday at 6 in the evening. Which one of those works for you? The Thursday morning? Okay, great. Now I'm going to write that in. I need you to write that in because I'm going to be here. I'm never late for an appointment. So make sure you write that in because I don't want to show up and not have you be here, okay? All right, great. This is really going to be great. You're going to love it. Now, before I leave, I just want to ask you 2 very, very important questions. First, if I present you with a plan that meets your needs in every way, that you're perfectly comfortable with, is there any reason we couldn't do business together? Great. Second, after we're done doing business, is there any reason you couldn't introduce me to 3 or 4 folks who could also benefit from the type of work that we've done? Great. Tom, I will see you on Thursday morning. I can't wait to bring this to you. I'm real excited.